ViacomCBS VetNet is thrilled to have Benjamin Pomerantz and Gary Harvey of New York State DVS with us. They are absolute experts. They are just wonderful. They're so generous with their time. And this is their passion space. They love helping other vets. And they have so many things that they're going to tell you about that I bet you didn't know were possible, from education benefits to bad paper discharges and all sorts of stuff. They're going to myth bust all those things you think you know and show you the possibilities that await with DVS. ViacomCBS VetNet team is so proud to have put this together, and we are so happy to see you all here. Gary, Ben, would you like to get into your slides?
Yes, very much so. Thank you very much for the introduction. Let me just share my screen right here. So, Melanie, thank you. I'd like to thank ViacomCBS, for the privilege of being able to provide this information to veterans and their family members, whomever we do have on the call. So thank you for taking the time to drop in and get some more information, and also be able to have the opportunity to be able to ask questions should you have any. So I'm a supervisor with the New York State Division of Veterans Affairs, Services rather. We changed our name from Affairs, but Veterans Services. So you see Veteran Benefits Advisor 2, but I'm a regional supervisor. So I supervise 9 offices across New York State. So the 5 boroughs, Westchester, Rockland County, they threw in Putnam County as well, and also Suffolk and Nassau County. And I'm here with my colleague, Benjamin Pomerantz, the Deputy Director for Program Development. So we're just going to do a little myth busting. Some of these myths that we put out and debunk and give you information on, it may actually already answer some of the questions you may have. It may lead to some other questions. We ask that you please save questions for the end. But if this is a question that's like kind of just burning you up and like you just have to answer it, and like you put it in the chat with like 4 exclamation points, then we know it has to be serious, and we'll answer the question for you, okay? But if you can wait, you can put it in the chat without the exclamation points, and we'll get to it at the end, or you can write it down, all right? One of the things that, looking at just our agency, one of the first myths is that, we're part of the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs. So a lot of veterans, their family members, sometimes they tend to get very mad at us off the bat once I let them know, I work for the New York State Division of Veterans Services, and especially when our name was the Division of Veterans Affairs, they really just thought that we were the VA. I would immediately get like, hey, I don't like the fact that you denied it. How dare you say that I'm not qualified for a benefit? And I say, no, I didn't do that. We didn't make the decision. So just to let you know, so the U.S. Department of Veterans Administration, it's a federal agency. They evaluate and judge claims and appeals for federal veterans benefits. We do not do that, all right? We're a state agency, and we represent veteran service members and their families in claims, okay, for state, for federal and state benefits. So just kind of giving that distinction. I put it out there, tell your friends, please. And so once again, who we are, we provide free services for all veteran service members and their family members. So this is a free service. There's no charge. We're not, consultants. We don't get a percentage of any benefit, or any claim that's decided. We don't take money either. So there's no like, hey, Gary, can we just give you a donation towards it? I'm going to say no. I get paid a salary from New York State. I like my salary and I like my job. So I will not accept anything from you. If you give me a lot of cookies, I will leave the cookies open and allow everyone else in the office to eat it. I will take one, but I won't take it personally and say, these are my cookies, because, the fact that I was able to assist is reward enough. And plus also, once again, I do get a salary. We are specialists in preparing claims and presenting claims. So we're subject matter experts. We're the ones that know the information, because this is what we train to do. We know federal law, state law as it pertains to veterans benefits. If it's something that we don't know, we know how to find the answer. We do a great job with keeping in contact and developing relationships with stakeholders. So, there may be some other avenues that we can actually provide you or for other services as well. So it doesn't hurt, just reach out to us. I want to make that distinction as far as the fact that we don't charge, because you will find other representatives, and not with whether it be a state or federal agency, just people who kind of set up their own shop and say, hey, listen, we'll do this for you for money. And so I've met people that paid $400 to have a form completed that we do for free. And we could have answered any questions they would have had, company or what have you that did it. They took a percentage of the winnings as well. So that's That's not what we do. And we have more than 50 field offices statewide. So we're all across New York State. All right.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Benjamin Pomerantz. I'm Gary's colleague at the State Division. I'm a lawyer, and like Gary, I don't take anybody's cookies either. I'll just have one. And we emphasize that in part because not only, as Gary said, do we do this work for free, but there is in fact a federal law which says that you as a veteran or you as somebody in a veteran's family, you're filing an initial claim for benefits, okay? Education benefits, disability compensation, pension, any of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. That initial claim with the federal government, you are not to be charged any money for that. That's not just us being nice, that's federal law. So if you're out there in the world beyond our agency and you're talking to someone, oh yeah, we'll do that form for you, like Gary said, for $400 or more, often it's more, let us know, okay? First of all, tell them no and get out of there and go to a place that'll do that work for free as the law requires. And then let us know, because there is a law in New York State called the Pension Poaching Prevention Act, which says that the Attorney General of the state has the ability to bring charges against somebody who is out there being nefarious and unscrupulous when it comes to charging money for an initial claim as prohibited by federal law. Again, there can be money charged for other things like appellate work, okay? Anything we have a notice of disagreement or anything higher than that in the appellate ladder, that money can be charged for. But that work, by the way, we do for free as well, all the way up to what's called the Board of Veterans Appeals. We handle those appeals free of charge. We even have an appellate unit within our agency that does nothing but appeals work day in and day out. And then they pass things on to people like Gary, who go before the veterans law judges, and they go on camera in a nice suit and tie and say, hey, judge, here's what's what. So we do a lot of work in the appellate area as well, and that is also free of charge within our agency. All right, so myth number 2 here, I'm not a veteran. This one I say, if I had a $10 bill every time someone said this to me who actually was a veteran, I could retire right now at the age of 33. Unfortunately, I don't get the money for that, so I can't retire. But this happens all the time. And for various reasons that we won't delve too deeply into today, there are so many veterans out there who do not self-identify as a veteran. So on the next slide, we're going to look at what a veteran actually is, not by misconception, not by a buddy or a barracks lawyer or a shipmate lawyer, but someone who actually is looking at the law. This is Title 38, Section 101, subsection 2 of the United States Code. And this is the baseline definition of the word veteran. A veteran is a person who, quote, served in the active military, naval, or air service. And then it goes on to say, and who was discharged or released therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable. Okay. So what's not in that definition? Well, a lot of things are not in that definition. There is nothing in that definition that requires that you serve in combat to be qualified as a veteran. There is nothing in there saying you have to serve for a certain length of time to be qualified as a veteran. There is nothing in there saying you have to serve during a wartime era, okay? One that I hear all the time is, oh, I never left the continental United States. Therefore, I don't qualify as a veteran. I was just here stateside. Well, you know what? There's a lot of important work going on stateside each and every day by the United States military. You absolutely are a veteran. The fact that you serve stateside as opposed to someplace across a border or across an ocean, that doesn't matter. Okay, stateside military service is still military service. Still somebody who served in the active military, naval, or air service, or who was discharged or released therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable. So if we go to the next slide here, I think we have some more information about what we're talking about when we say this. Character of service, right? Common misconception is there are 2 characters of discharge. There's honorable, which is good, that's your golden tickets, and there's dishonorable, which is bad, and that closes all the doors. Well, you do have those characterizations of service, but as you see on this slide, there are a lot of shades of gray in between. We're going to talk later on in the presentation about something called a discharge upgrade appeal, where you can even, if you have a meritorious case, get your characterization of discharge changed. But you have, for example, a general under honorable conditions discharge, okay? That's not going to bar you from very many benefits. Yes, it's one rung down from honorable, but most federal and state benefits have no requirement that it has to be just an honorable discharge. There's only two major exceptions to that rule, okay? The GI Bill, education benefits, that does require an honorable discharge only, no exceptions made. On the New York State side of the house, the New York State military pension buyback under Section 1000 of the State Retirement and Social Security Law, that also requires an honorable discharge only. But a lot of the other stuff we're going to be talking about here today, disability compensation, pension, access to VA health care, even things like burial benefits or survivor's benefits, a general under honorable conditions discharge is not going to close those doors too. It has no adverse effect on your ability to access those benefits. And then even here, when we get down to an other than honorable discharge or a bad conduct discharge, even one given by court-martial, right, a punitive discharge like bad conduct, there still are, under certain circumstances, situations where somebody is able to still get certain federal and state benefits, even with that lower than honorable characterization of service, right? Even an OTH or a BCD discharge. We're going to talk more about that later on. So that's the character of service myths. The other myth that's out there at this definitional piece is what branches of the service actually qualify as being a veteran. And often, you know, if we were all together in person, like back in the day when in-person stuff was a thing, I would say, okay, everyone name off a branch of the military. And usually it goes in no particular order of preference, something like this: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. Sometimes folks mention Coast Guard. Sometimes they forget. It's too bad, because the Coast Guard does obviously vital work for our country, and they should never be forgotten about. But there are two other branches that are almost always left off that list, okay? And they are part not of the armed forces, but the uniformed services of the USA. And they do crucial work, which also qualifies them as veteran status. One is the Commissioned Officers Corps of the Public Health Service. Certainly these days, in the midst of COVID-19, we know the Public Health Service is doing a lot of vital, life-saving work. So the Commissioned Officers Corps Public Health Service, and also the Commissioned Officers Corps of the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration. They qualify as veterans as well. So myths with characterization of discharge, myths with what qualifies in terms of branch of service, and again, lots of myths about length of service, combat service, military occupational specialty, continental U.S. versus outside the U.S., all that stuff, as you saw in that baseline definition, that does not matter. You don't have to be a combat veteran or a wartime era veteran or someone who served outside the USA or someone who served in a certain military occupational specialty. Your service qualifies you as a veteran. There will be certain benefits you're going to hear about today that do have some additional requirements ladled onto them. And Gary and I will be talking about those specific requirements as we go along. But once again, that basic definition of veteran, this is all we're talking about here. Nothing less, but also nothing more. Gary, back over to you.
Thank you, Benjamin. So when it comes to myth number 3, my character of discharge can never possibly be changed. This is incorrect. So federal law provides a process which unjustly issued character of discharge can be upgraded. We look at when it comes to discharge review boards and boards for correction. So what happens is there's a particular form, for one, when you want to have your discharge upgraded. It's a DD form 293. Now, you know, they ask information regarding your service, but when it comes to our agency, and what needs to actually be done as well is providing a narrative, really laying out exactly what happened, because a lot of times that we've met many people who were young, you know, there were things going on in their life, you know, family members passed away, they just wanted to leave the military and get back to their family. They didn't know, you know, a lot of things about, you know, military rules. They were still, you know, kind of new to the whole, and some people left, went AWOL or what have you. And some of those circumstances can be explained. Many of those circumstances, we explain those circumstances and say, listen, this is what happened. There are a lot of times where someone had a mental health condition that was manifesting itself while in service, and they had no idea what was going on, whether it be schizoaffective disorder, anxiety, depression. Things started happening in them based on the stress of the military, and next thing you know, they started disobeying orders and getting into fights and things of that nature. Once again, the chain of command said, you know what, you have to leave, you have to get out, you're not following our orders. They get discharged, bad conduct discharge, dishonorable discharge, and they kind of come out and say, you know what, that's just the answer. And then we find out many years later, they get diagnosed with a condition. Some of them may have even gotten service connected, depending on the circumstances, they may have gotten service connected. So they're actually getting compensated because they may have gotten treatment in service, for depression or anxiety, and then eventually got kicked out. And so we look at just laying down the foundation. What is the issue? Was it impropriety or inequity, right? So was it just someone who just wanted to be bad because they wanted to be bad, or was there some other factors involved in this? And what we do is we kind of get a full scope of what happened. We look at the personnel records, and we like to gather the personnel records. If there was a court martial, get the court martial transcripts, finding out exactly what happened and painting a narrative. With the discharge review boards, they look at the current job. So basically letting someone else show that, hey, listen, I know this is how I was then, but now I'm a productive member of society. I have this type of job. I have a family. This is why having a discharge upgrade would mean so much to me. I want my child to know that I served, my country. I'm not able to get certain benefits, things of that nature, just kind of explaining what led to their actions in service, and really just painting a narrative. And so with the discharge review board, it's reviewed, and and I've seen a lot of them go through. And sometimes they may come back and they may find that, we really don't agree with this, and there's another process that we can do as well, depending on what they're looking for. But it is possible. You can get your discharge upgraded, and once you get it upgraded, then you can be entitled to the benefits that you were denied as a result of your discharge. Also have the board for correction, and they can they assist also when it comes to if there was an injustice or an error on your discharge document, your DD 214, it's a DD 149 that has to be completed, but you're stating exactly what the issue was. There are a lot of people, a lot of veterans who may not have gotten all their awards, and they feel that they're entitled to the award, but for some reason they didn't get it. They may have been left off of a memorandum or something along those lines. And they, once again, providing a narrative. They complete the form and they ask, what is the error or injustice that took place? And they provide a statement. A statement is provided, as well as maybe evidence. So let's say they served with someone, this person got the award, they didn't get the award. They say, listen, here's something showing that someone I served with got the award. Here's a statement from them stating that I served with them. You can see from right here, this document I'm providing you, we were in the same unit, and so that can help turn the tide. I will let you know the discharge review process can take upwards of about 18 months, in some cases 2 years. So that's why we want to make sure that everything is done properly, not just send like a one-page letter saying, please upgrade my discharge. It would be nice and send it out. We really want to send a lot of evidence showing that whatever happened then, you're not the same person now. And we also work with other agencies, and Benjamin can attest to that. Other lawyers that actually do review the documentation. So once, for instance, I would get the documentation, or someone that I supervise, we would get the documentation, and then we would pass it on to Benjamin, and Benjamin and his colleagues would review it for thoroughness, see what's missing, and they would say, you know what, maybe this argument is missing right here, or we can provide this particular type of argument. So it's a great resource, but please do not feel that all is lost as a result of your discharge. Some of the benefits. So general, under, and honorable, like Benjamin stated, is fine for other benefits except for the GI. The GI Bill is they're firm. I had someone say, hey, Gary, do you think that's fair? Not for me to say whether or not it's fair. I just know that it's fact. It's something that's not changing. There's nothing that I would they wanted me to file an appeal. I know the law. So these are the things that we do when it comes to being a veterans benefits advisor, is that not helping you not spin your wheels, just going back and forth. We will tell you, hey, listen, you're not entitled to this benefit, and here's why. Don't try to keep fighting it because you feel it's not fair. What are the facts, and what is the evidence that we have? And so we help you gather that evidence. We tell you exactly what's needed. We actually help read a lot of the VA documentation that you may get that you may not understand. because there's a lot of things that are in that decision that you receive that you may just overlook. You may just see the denial and get mad at the denial, but there's more pertinent information in there telling you what you should be, what you can do, your recourse of action as far as appeal wise, which I'm going to get into later. So there are a lot of things that, like I said, we do a lot. So I just say, trust us, trust the veteran benefits advisor with this, because it definitely saves a lot of headache.
All seriousness, it's a topic that is so often overlooked. And so if this applies to you, if this applies to someone who you know, don't just say, or don't let your buddy say, oh, I got a less than honorable discharge. Well, I can't qualify for anything. That absolutely is not automatically the case, as you just saw and heard from Gary. So that's a good time to connect them with an advocate, okay, someone who will work on their behalf and get the right forms, the right information, the right evidence to the right people, and put that strong argument together to say, hey, this is why, yeah, I get what it says on the person's characterization of discharge. However, here's why it was issued unjustly, right? This is not somebody who was being mad, bad, and dangerous in the military. This is someone who, for example, was confronted by discriminatory conduct, right, on the part of their commanding officers based on their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their gender expression, right, with policies like don't ask, don't tell. Or it's a situation where there was a manifestation of a mental health condition, which, oh, by the way, was caused by or worsened by their time in service. Well, not really fair to punish someone because of a mental health condition which was caused by military service itself, all right? So these types of things are the kinds of cases we can bring forward to the Discharge Review Board or to the Board for Corrections of that individual's branch of service and make that argument. Likewise, as you saw on the other slide Gary provided, these are things we can bring forward to the VA, for example, and say, hey, VA, you have discretion under certain specific circumstances involving mental health, for example, or involving certain extenuating conditions or circumstances to grant benefits, even though someone has not had their character of discharge changed. Right? Kind of the mini myth in there is that, oh, my character of discharge is whatever. I can't get any benefits until it gets changed. That's not necessarily the case. Bottom line, come see one of us, come see an advocate who does this type of work, okay, who can represent you and give you the facts, number one, and present that strong argument, number two. So why bother? Why bother doing all this? And also, on I guess, the business side of the house, why bother asking the question of, have you ever served in the military? What is the benefit in identifying people as veterans? Okay. And all the time I get, well, yeah, that's kind of a nice feel-good thing to do, but like, what's the actual concrete stuff that can be offered to someone who's served in the military besides saying, oh, hey, thank you for your service? Well, here's what the reality looks like here. There's a lot of possible benefits that could be being left on the table when someone is not identified as veterans. So if we go to the next slide here, we see we're talking about money, right? Tax-free federal dollars and benefits like disability compensation or pension. We're talking potentially about access to health care through the VA. We're talking potentially about job preferences, especially when we're talking public sector, right? We're talking about the ability to get extra points in the civil service exam, the ability in some situations to bypass a civil service exam entirely. We'll talk more about that later. Potentially assistance for housing, okay? Even something like property tax exemptions, which might seem kind of minute and obscure right now. You know when it stops being minute and obscure? Right around tax time every year. And that's when those exemptions can be a really nice thing to have, right? More money in your pocket, less money going away from your pocket to the government, right? So and this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot that individuals leave on the table literally every single day. We're talking veterans, we're talking family of veterans, we're talking surviving spouses and children of veterans. Just because they're not self-identifying as a veteran or somebody in a veteran's family, and also because people are not asking them that question of, have you ever served in the military? So one key takeaway from today is, what can you do? Make certain that whenever possible, when you are engaging with other people, that question's being asked. And if the answer is yes, those referrals are being made to advocates like ourselves who will represent them strongly and knowledgeably at the various levels of government to get them what they've earned.
Thank you. Myth number 5, veteran was discharged 20 years ago. They are not eligible for any veterans benefits. All right, you hear that a lot, depending on how long ago you got out. They say, listen, it was too long ago. And I just want to say that, the majority of the veterans benefits do not have a post-discharge time limit. All right. I also look at and keep in mind, once again, when it comes to something like service connection, the only hurdle I would say is the fact that there may be a large gap between the injury that took place in service and, when you were actually, let's say, diagnosed on the outside. But once again, those are things that we can assist, with making up for that lost time. We can do statements from your friends and your family that can attest to the injury that took place when, in service. I've done things where someone sent a letter to their family while they were in the military and talked about the injury. And then we use that as evidence to show that something took place based on the date stamp, and also just provided statements of why they never got treatment when they got out of service, to make up for that time. And those are things that if we don't get it won at the lower level through the VA, cases won at the Board of Veterans Appeals before the veteran law judge. It's really just about trying to get reasonable doubt. So don't think that based on how long ago you got out of service, everything is just done. There are a lot of benefits, once again, that have no discharge. I know people that got out 20 years ago and longer that are just now going to the VA for treatment. So once again, if you need clarity, reach out to a veterans advocate to understand. I always say, please do not talk yourself out of something. I always tell people, don't talk yourself out of the benefit. Ask the question, see if you're entitled to the benefit. But don't talk. I watch people talk themselves out of a benefit that they were entitled to, and I'd say, no, please don't do that. But just imagine how many people did that without actually having someone telling them not to do that. And I know someone, in closing, I'm going to go before I go to the next slide, that did not know that they were entitled to a property tax exemption. And they were very upset. They were happy I told them, but upset because they were like, I was a property owner for 20 years. You're telling me I could have been getting an exemption? And the answer was yes, but they had no idea. 20 years they owned this property, had no idea that they could have been saving money with on taxes. Benjamin.
Myth number 6, VA does not provide monetary benefits for eligible veterans. People think, well, the VA, they just run the hospitals, right? They're the people who run the hospitals like on 23rd Street and Poly Place over in Brooklyn and out in St. Albans. That's what the VA does, right? Well, that's what the Veterans Health Administration does. There's another arm of the VA called the Veterans Benefits Administration, and they do provide monetary benefits for veterans who meet certain criteria. So let's go to the next slide and look at some of those. Disability compensation. Again, this could be an all-day topic, but basically your Cliff Notes version of this is we're talking about somebody who incurred or aggravated a medical condition while in military service, okay? Now, here's where veterans self-select themselves out all the time, and they do exactly what Gary just said, don't do. We'll get this comment. Well, yeah, I got injured, but it wasn't a terrible, I didn't lose a limb or anything. Okay, we're not just talking about the loss of a limb. The most common benefits, or the most common condition, for example, for which we file for disability compensation is tinnitus and hearing loss, okay? Is that the same as losing a limb? Well, no. However, is that something that is adversely impacting your life now that was not adversely impacting your life before military service and was either caused or exacerbated by that service? If the answer is yes, you have tax-free money, disability compensation, owed to you by Uncle Sam, because the only reason why you got that condition was because you were serving this country, all right? The other miniature myth within this is the money myth. People say, well, I think my income is too high for disability compensation. There is no such thing. You could be Bill Gates, you could be Jeff Bezos, doesn't matter, right? You could be a billionaire. If you incurred an injury in military service, or if you have a medical condition today that was at least as likely as not caused by or worsened by your service, you're eligible for this benefit. There is no income limit. You see here on the slide this thing called presumptive conditions. That's a legalese mouthful. All that means is there are certain medical conditions that if you have them, the VA presumes that those conditions were caused by the fact that you were serving during a certain time period in a certain geographic location, right? Most famous is probably Vietnam War veterans who served in country in Vietnam. who were exposed to a herbicide called Agent Orange, which has been medically linked and presumed to be the cause of conditions that range from type 2 diabetes to peripheral neuropathy to a whole different range of cancers, right? Prostate cancer, lung cancer, Parkinson's disease is on this list as well. Conditions that sometimes people have many years later in their life, okay? They never think to file for benefits because, oh, okay, it's the product of aging. Well, that's not what the VA says. The VA says if you have one of those conditions that is on that presumptive list, the VA will presume that that condition was caused by or worsened by your service in country in Vietnam and award benefits for you. And then secondary conditions, that's just a giant game of connect the dots, okay? If I injure my left knee in the military, for example, and as a result, I wind up putting more weight and pressure on my right knee when I walk. And over time, that right knee kind of grinds down and starts to have pain or instability. Well, now you can file for disability compensation for the right knee as well. Why? Because even though that right knee injury was not actually caused in service or worsened in service, it was a direct result of that left knee injury. If but for that left knee injury in service, I wouldn't have been putting that additional weight and pressure on the right knee. So as you can see, a lot of times benefits are out there in this compensation world that veterans might be eligible for. They might be self-selecting out, saying, oh, I don't think I qualify for that. Don't think. Let us do the thinking, okay?
Exactly.
Let advocates do that thinking for you and tell us what's going on. And then we can talk to you about, okay, well, here's how the law and the regs apply in your specific case. And then we also have a benefit out there that I think is in the next slide called pension, okay?
This one right here, this is showing the money right here. You got to show them the money, Benjamin.
You got to show them the money. This is a good slide here. This is what we're talking about. Remember, this money is tax-free federal dollars, okay? So the VA rates a disability in increments of 10%, okay, with 10% being least severe, 100% being most severe. And then you see also on the other side, additional compensation available if you have a rating of 30% or higher and you have dependents in your household, all right? This is monthly payouts, tax-free.
Tax-free.
Imagine how much money you could be leaving on the table if you are not filing for the benefits that you have earned. Remember, this is not a handout. This is money that you have earned because you have a disability that was caused because you served this country. Let's go to the next slide.
All right. So this one right here, you already spoke on the elements of a claim. Yeah. So you already spoke on that one right there. We have the appeals process as well. Do you want to go to the? I can jump to pension and come back to this if you would like.
We can talk about this very quickly. So appeals, okay. Like we said before, we have a unit in our agency that deals with appeals. And this basically is the way of saying to you, if you lose a case, okay, the initial claim gets denied by the VA, don't despair. This happens all the time. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, the VA is wrong, okay? And so we'll work with you to see if the VA was wrong. And if they did something wrong, there are 3 different lanes that you can use to file an appeal, okay? And if you go to one lane and you don't prevail there, you know what? You can pick a different lane. It's not like you get one bite at the apple and the game is over. And all 3 of those lanes that you see on the screen here, our agency works within all 3 of those lanes to get those appeals forward to the VA so that you can hopefully get an outcome of justice in your case. All right, here we go, VA pension. This is one that, again, gets often overlooked. Why? Because people hear pension, they think about military retiree pension. All right, oh, I didn't serve for 20 years, therefore I can't get this thing called pension. That's not what we're talking about here. Pension in the VA context refers to a veteran who served during a wartime era, an individual who has a permanent and total disability. The disability, by the way, in this situation does not have to be linked in any way, shape, or form to military service. And their income and their net worth, okay, their personal assets, fall below thresholds set each year by Congress. A couple of things there. Wartime era. Wartime era does not mean you have to serve in combat. It sounds like it, but that's not what it actually means. All wartime means is you served on active duty somewhere in the world during a time when the United States was deemed to be at war. So right now, we are deemed to be in the Gulf War era. Regardless of where you're serving right now, you are serving during wartime because you are serving on active duty somewhere in the world during a time when the U.S. is deemed by Congress to be at war. and this whole thing about permanent and total disability. There's a pretty interesting presumption that the VA makes, that if you are age 65 or above, you are presumed by the VA to be permanently and totally disabled for VA pension purposes, which means you don't have to show any additional medical evidence to qualify for VA pension. And this is often where I get dirty looks. What do you mean? Yeah, I'm over the age of 65. I don't think I'm permanently and totally disabled. Yeah. Is this thing ageist? Is it kind of like an age discrimination thing? Yeah, it is. But does it help our clients? Yes, it does. So in this context, we go with it. And if you're age 65 or above, just know you get that advantage of checking that box of permanent and total disability for pension purposes without having to provide any additional evidence to. So here's some more money things to look at here. This is the different pension amounts that we're talking about. Okay, you see these things about housebound and A&A. A&A stands for aid and attendance. Okay, aid and attendance basically means meet the criteria for the basic pension, and also you require assistance with 2 or more activities of daily living. Okay, stuff like bathing, stuff like feeding, stuff like being able to move around throughout your living space safely, things like that, right? Housebound, that refers to somebody who is not able to regularly leave their residence, their living space safely. All right. So if you're housebound or if you meet the requirements for aid and attendance, you can get that basic pension amount plus more in recognition of the fact that your disabling condition or conditions is causing you to be basically confined to quarters or causing you to need that help with activities of daily living. That net worth limit you see here, that bright line limit, if your personal assets go above that amount, even by $1, you can't qualify for VA pension. But here's a couple of pieces of good news around that people overlook. Here's what's not counted against that net worth cap. Your primary residence is not counted against it. All vehicles necessary for household use are not counted against it. That includes, by the way, stuff that is non-traditional. Way up north in New York State, for example, we were able to win a case once, not either Gary or I, but a colleague of ours who works up north, won a case for a veteran involving pension, and the extra vehicle necessary for household use was not a car, it was a snowmobile. And the case that was made was that, well, during the wintertime, there's a lot of ice and snow on the roads. Sometimes roads are closed. I can't bring the car on the road, but I can bring that snowmobile out and get my family where they have to go. Okay, this falls into the creative advocacy bucket. And then basic household effects, right? Like your utensils for eating, basic household furnishings. They're not going to count against that bright line limit either. So some veterans self-select out, oh, my home is worth more than that. I can't get the pension. Your home is not going to count. My vehicles, well, the vehicles aren't going to count if they are necessary for household use. So again, underscoring yet again the importance of coming to advocates to work on your behalf for this stuff.
Thank you very much for that, Benjamin. Myth 7, there are no benefits for surviving spouses of a veteran. That's incorrect. But one thing I do want to let you know is a lot of times people feel that if a veteran was getting a benefit, that once the veteran passes away, the widow automatically receives the benefit. So that's incorrect. So I had a lot of unfortunate widows saying, I was told that I would get all of my spouse's compensation money, and that's not correct. So just, providing clarity to maybe some misinformation sometimes. It happens, but I definitely want to give you the clarity. There's a benefit called dependency and indemnity compensation, or DIC. So if a veteran was 100% permanent and total, so 100% service connected, and they had that disability for 10 or more years, and the veteran passes away, it doesn't matter what they pass away from, in a sense of they don't have to pass away from something they're service connected for. It's if they pass away from any condition, the spouse will get the benefit called DIC. On the other side, if the veteran wasn't 100% permanent and total for 10 or more years, the VA does look at whether or not the death was related to a service-connected condition. So if the veteran was service-connected for, I've had a case with a veteran was service-connected for PTSD, Unfortunately, the veteran committed suicide, and we were able to state that as a result of the PTSD, this is what led to the veteran's passing, and the widow was able to get the DIC benefit. But if it's a condition that that caused the veteran's death, or it was, or if it was a connection to it. So one condition led to another, but we look at whether or not it was a service-connected condition. But once again, don't talk yourself out of the benefit. Ask us the question, and we'll be able to dig into the information and find out for you. Here are the amounts of DIC. So once again, this is tax-free, and this is per month. All right. So you have $1,357.56 per month. They also have additional amount of money added called the 8-year rule. So if the widow was married to the veteran, 8 years for 8 years prior to the veteran's passing, additional amount of money. If the widow has conditions that medical conditions that require the use of someone to help them with daily living activities, an additional amount is added. Or because you can't get aid in attendance and housebound at the same time, or if they don't find that these conditions are that severe, but in the sense of needing assistance for daily living assistance, but they are rendered housebound as a result, then as you can see, it's an additional $157.55 added to the benefit. There's also survivor's pension. So Benjamin went over what the pension requirements are, but same thing. They look at the veteran service, but then also they look at the widow's income as well. So it's an income-based benefit. So we do have to look at the widow's income as well, and also see if there's any medical expenses that could lower the countable income. So once again, I don't want anyone to make the decision on their own that they don't qualify. Ask us, and we'll make that determination. And so when you look at the amount for basic pension, essentially everything, and just like with pension, is matched dollar for dollar. So if they're getting, $400 in Social Security, then they can't get the full amount. They can get whatever. So if it's $400 in Social Security, they can get the remaining $379 as long as they have no other income when it comes to basic pension. But as you see with housebound and aid in attendance, the income that they're able to have increases. So that's why we ask about their disabilities as well. So we ask the spouses, the widows rather as well, do you have any particular disabilities? And there's a document that has to be completed by their doctors to verify this. All right, myth number 8, Benjamin.
We can fly through this one here because we've covered part of this already, but we're going to just be a broken record and really drive it home here. The veteran never served in combat. They are not eligible for veterans benefits. This is a myth we hear every day. There are many benefits for which a non-combat veteran may absolutely be eligible. Disability compensation, for example, right? It does not matter where the injury occurred as long as the injury was either incurred or worsened while in military service. So if you're injured on day 1 of boot camp, okay, day 1 of basic training, that is an in-service injury. And you can receive compensation if that injury is still causing adverse symptoms to you today. The injury does not need to occur in a combat zone to get disability compensation for it. VA pension, as I mentioned before, wartime service does not equal combat service. All it means is service somewhere in the world during a time when the U.S. was deemed to be at war, okay? And again, disability comp, we're talking about that nexus. We're not talking about just combat service. Nexus between in-service injury and the in-service circumstances in that current disabling condition. And then the state benefits we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. You're going to see some of those saying wartime service is requirement, okay? Don't be fooled. Wartime service simply means service somewhere during a time of war. It does not mean you have to be in a combat zone. So individuals who did not serve in combat, number one, have done a lot of things for this country, regardless of not serving in a combat zone. And number two, are still eligible, often for a lot more than they think they are. Gary, back over to you.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Myth number 9, the veteran does not have to have a disability caused by their military service. They are not eligible for VA healthcare. Hear that a lot once again. What happens is a lot, the VA does need to look at your DD-214. I know someone who I hope the veteran who was a reservist, but he was activated for the postal strike. And as a result of that activation, there was something on his DD-214 that showed he was eligible for benefits based on his active service just for the postal strike. So he didn't get deployed, anything. He was activated for the postal strike. Once again, don't talk yourself out of the benefit. I tell them, go to the VA, go through the eligibility process. Let the VA tell you you don't qualify for benefits. But I don't want to tell someone, I don't want them to self-disqualify, to disqualify themselves rather. So the reality is, once again, we're looking at the time in service, when they were discharged. The VA looks at their income as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Yes, people can actually not be eligible for VA services based on their income. I've seen it happen where they said, you know what, you make too much money. Sometimes you look at the various healthcare providers. But once again, let the VA tell you that you don't qualify versus you tell yourself that you don't qualify, or a family member say that they don't qualify. All right. Looking at just some of the care from the VA, they have state veterans homes. They have veteran centers, they have vet centers. A lot of times veterans who, with mental health concerns, they may not want to go to a VA hospital. They may want to go to a vet center. It's a little bit more intimate. They actually have a lot of veterans actually work there. So a lot of veterans that are licensed clinical social workers, they have a lot more flexible hours. So a lot of them are open till 8 p.m. in a lot of areas. A lot of these things can be a simple Google search vet center, and you can find and see if there's one in your area. The VA actually has a web, on the VA's website, you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you exactly where the nearest vet center is, the nearest state veteran nursing home. But yeah, simple Google search can give you all this information.
Myth number 10, almost there. There are no burial benefits for veterans is a myth that we hear far too often as well. And it's kind of depressing to talk about this, right? But end-of-life concerns, end-of-life questions, veterans and their families have these, and often they get misinformed, thinking that there's nothing that the VA provides. There actually is an entire branch of the VA called the National Cemetery Administration. And their job is to assist veterans when it comes to burial benefits matters, those veterans who are eligible. And they also maintain the system of national cemeteries across the country. Now, the national cemeteries, I had someone on Monday say, isn't it true that you have to get the Congressional Medal of Honor or the Purple Heart to be buried in a national cemetery? That is absolutely not true. If that were the case, there'd be a lot of empty space in the national cemeteries. Here's the only national cemetery requirement. All you have to be is a veteran, okay, who served on active duty and was discharged therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable. All right? So for someone who wishes to have a national cemetery be their final resting place and be among their fellow veterans on that hallowed ground, that's not just for a select few. That is for those who served on active duty and were discharged under conditions other than dishonorable. And in fact, there's even a process now that we help veterans with where you can actually reserve a grave site in a VA national cemetery. It provides that peace of mind for those who are advanced planners. There's also the ability to get things free of charge from the National Cemetery Administration, including a government headstone or a grave medallion. Also, the memorial certificate from the president. Okay, you can get as many of those for the survivors as you want to get. There is no limit on the number. There's also the ability to get one burial flag as well. The American flag that is properly folded and presented is part of this too. And then we talk about money to help cover the funeral and interment costs, right? Burial or cremation. That amount is going to differ a little bit depending on the veteran's eligibility. For example, it's $2,000 if the cause of death was a medical condition related to military service. It's $807 if there is a non-service related death where the veteran's passed away in a VA medical facility. And it's a different amount, okay, if it's the veteran passing away in a non-VA medical facility. And then if the veteran is not interred in a national cemetery, okay, now you're paying money out of pocket, the VA also will provide for eligible veterans a plot allowance of $807. Of course, in the national cemetery, there is no charge for the grave plot. Again, we could talk a lot longer about this. Main takeaway is if you have those questions around end of life, okay, if you and your family have those questions, come to our division. We can go through your individual service, your individual circumstances, okay, or this also applies after a veteran has passed away. We'll work with the surviving family. We'll work, if needed, with the funeral home director if they have some questions and help point everyone in the right direction to get those burial benefits for which they are eligible.
All right, last slide. New York State offers no benefits for veterans. This is incorrect. We have the New York State blind annuity, veterans tax exemption, as Benjamin spoke about, access to state nursing homes. So there are state nursing homes across New York State, education benefits such as the Veteran Tuition Award, which I'm going to be utilizing to go back to school. So that's outside of the GI Bill, but utilizing the Veteran Tuition Award. And Benjamin spoke about the employment opportunities, when it comes to New York State, whether it be there's the 55C program where the state of New York actually reserves, I think like 500 jobs, for disabled veterans. You simply and then you can also be in a position of not actually having to take, it's entry-level jobs with the state of New York. So you don't actually have to take the examination. You simply can apply directly to the agency, provide your resume, showing proof that you actually do meet the qualifications for the role, and you can be considered for the role. So basically bypassing the examination that needs to be taken. I wish I'd have known about that before, because I took the examination for this job and had no idea. I did it after the fact, but I passed it. So here I am. But there are a lot of benefits, and so many other benefits as well. And we can talk about this a lot, but so please call the number, get more information just to find out what benefits that, you are entitled to. There's the Liberty Park Pass for service-connected veterans. You have to be 40% service-connected, and you can get access, free, access, and sometimes in certain cases reduced access to certain state parks in New York, in New York State. I have that, so I'm grateful for that right there. But that is the end of our presentation, and just see if we have anyone that just has a particular question.
I have some questions,
yep.
Gary.
Yes.
So one, you guys gave so much information. If someone wants to follow up with either of you, I know you put the information for the New York State DVS, Ben, at the beginning, you dropped that in the chat. How would they go about that? Because there's such a broad range of topics that they could come to you for, whether it's, service discharge upgrades, whether it's education benefits, job benefits, burial benefits, spousal stuff. Can they do a generic consult with a staff member? Does it have to be, they have to know what they want? And how would you go about that? It can
absolutely be generic. Yeah, we have a name for this. We call it a veterans benefits checkup. And so just like you go to the doctor for your annual physical, you get that checkup, get your veterans benefits checkup too. And that includes, by the way, individuals who may already have, let's say, a disability compensation rating. Well, okay. When was that 10% rating for your back injury awarded? Oh, 7 years ago. Okay. Has the back condition gotten worse? Has your range of motion become decreased? Are you getting more pain, more instability in your back?
So Ben,
has that back condition now radiated out to other areas of your body? Okay, that can now be what we call a claim for increase to get hopefully that 10% rating risen up. Yeah.
Oh, how do they make that general checkup? Did they just call the number you dropped? Okay, I'm going to copy paste and redrop that. So that's 1-888-838-7697. And the website is www.veterans.newyorkny, right? ny.gov. veterans.ny.gov.
So I just want to add to that. We're actually doing something new called MS Bookings, and it's going to be going live soon, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ben?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So when they go to the actual website, there'll be a link where they can schedule a consult with a veteran benefits advisor. So just off of our New York State, our agency's website, they can actually schedule a consult with a benefits advisor, anyone throughout New York State. And it's going to be based on our calendars, based on our availability. So they can have access to anyone that can provide that information to them. I see some questions in the chat. Someone asked if tinnitus would be considered a presumptive claim. Tinnitus would be based on what we look at when we file the claim, and what we ask you would be based on your exposure to noise on a continuous basis. We look at the job that you did in service. So if you worked on an aircraft carrier, if you were a mechanic in service, These are the things we need to know. And then we ask you, when did this ringing in your ears manifest itself? Because a lot of times the VA is going to say, you were diagnosed 20 years later. It looks bad that way. But then we ask the following questions. I say, did you notice a ringing in your ears in service? They said, yeah, but I just didn't know what it was. And we make sure that the VA is aware of that information. Veteran did have ringing in the ears in service, a humming sound, didn't know what it was. And so that's what would help get the reasonable doubt, as we at least provide that particular fact. So once again, it's just knowing the nuances rather of your service, the job you did, and basically what your story is after service. Because I met someone else who was a construction worker for 40 years after service, and it really didn't fly too well with the VA because they said, listen, it could have been from the jackhammers.
I have a follow-up that ties right into that, Gary.
Yes.
This is a huge myth that I hear all the time, or I don't know if it's a myth or fact. So I'd love for you guys to shed some light. Can you, as a veteran, get 100% veteran disability and still work a normal job?
Yes. I mean, yeah,
absolutely.
You can. I mean, yeah, I've met people that do all types of jobs. They're 100%. The thing is, when you have a benefit called individual unemployability, that's when they start looking at your employment. That they look at how much money you make. Because there's a particular threshold that they look at, because individual unemployability, you're basically stating that because of your disability, it's hard for you to maintain or maintain gainful employment or get gainful employment. But once again, this is where we come in and look at the definition of whatever work you're doing. Is it considered gainful? Because I know people that are getting an individual unemployability benefit, which is the VA essentially pays you at the 100% rate, even though your disability is at 70%. But they look at the fact of whether or not it's hard for you to get employment. Those are the things we look at too. Like that's sometimes where the VA is like, what job are you doing? How much money are you making? But if you're 100% for one disability or combined rating of 100%, you can be a millionaire still get that particular benefit. You can work 4 jobs. The VA, you're just gonna have additional money. That's it.
Okay, can you guys?
And the other piece that we hear with that myth, Melanie, is that people say, well, okay, if I'm still working, right, and I'm getting 100% disability, is someone from the government going to call up my employer and say, hey, did you know that your employee has a 100% rating for whatever the condition is, or whatever the conditions are? And the answer is no. I mean, we obviously don't do that. We're bound by terms of confidentiality. Same goes with the VA, okay? The only time you have interactions, like Gary said, between the VA and an employer is going to be in the situation where you're filing for that disability of total disability based on individual unemployability. But a regular 100% rating, you absolutely can work. And regardless of what your disability compensation rating is, the VA is not going to be going around, nor are we going to be going around talking to employers saying, hey, did you know what your employer? No, that's not what we do. And it would actually be a violation of both federal and state law if we were to do that.
Ben, Gary, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share this amazing information. Thank you for making it so accessible. Thank you for being so personable and taking like all of your passion and just sharing with us how we can advocate for ourselves. Thank you for working for our veteran and military community. Ben, I know you're not a veteran yourself, but you have the biggest heart in the world to be working on behalf of veterans. And Gary, thank you as a fellow veteran for, being here with your friends and family, and just both of you. We cannot thank you enough for the work you do and for sharing this with us. So from all of us at ViacomCBS VetNet, thank you for being here. And thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your expertise with us.
You're very welcome. All right, everyone, take care.